Okay, everybody, this is my review of Dexter New Blood Episode 1, Cold Snap. This was directed by Marco Siga and written by Clyde Phillips, which is super important because Clyde Phillips was the showrunner of seasons 1 through 4, aka the great seasons of Dexter, and you see how much the quality dropped off from the final seasons here when he left, so it was exciting to see that he is the showrunner for this full 10 episodes of this season, and you can see already the difference and how it feels like the Dexter of old that was before the fall off of quality for the show. It makes all the difference who you have helming behind the scenes here and who's writing here, so really exciting that Clyde Phillips is here and he hasn't lost his touch. So where we catch up with Dexter here, it's about 10 years later from where we last saw him, and now he's under the identity of Jim Lindsay, and he's running through this snowy environment in the woods in upstate New York. He's going after this white buck, and it's important because he's not able to shoot this white buck. It's so interesting with this character of Dexter where you see by the end of this episode, he's pissed when the buck gets shot because he sees it as innocent. He's not this guy who can just hunt these innocent animals. That's not Dexter. Even though he's a serial killer, it's not in his DNA, and he's trying to, but he can't, which is fascinating, which we'll get more into. But you see it's playing in this opening scene. Iggy Pop's the passenger, which was also played in the trailer, a little on the nose because of his dark passenger we all know and love about Dexter, but it actually is something I think in this type of show we can get away with. It fits with the style of the show, so I don't actually get mad about that in this type of show. I think that song works perfectly for the type of genre we're in here with Dexter. I really like it being in this snowy environment and it being in a color palette of all this cold blue because I was sick of the Miami scene for Dexter. Even in season 4, I was over it. I thought this just stayed there way too long. So I'm happy seeing Dexter in a new, fresh area. I appreciate that. And I appreciate what this intro episode did so well. And a couple of things that really stood out to me is that they winked at stuff from Dexter in the past, but they didn't use it as a crutch. It wasn't just let's revisit things and just have nostalgia. It was its own entity and fresh enough, which I appreciated. And I'll get into why I felt like it was a lot of fresh things happening here. And I also really loved how they made the choice not to drag out the whole season to get to be Dexter we know that is a killer, that they could have really slowed this down if they wanted to and maybe made it like we don't see it till the end, but we know it's coming, so just give it to us now, right? That's what makes this show run, so they don't waste time, which I appreciated. But what I loved about this premiere is how when we meet this character of Matt, who the second you knew he walked into this fish and game shop, that he was this unlikable guy that was going to be Dexter's first kill. So props to the actor for being so hateable here. But that they slowly ramped up Dexter's rage towards him and that it worked so well in this episode to eventually get that breaking point for him. And that it wasn't just happening on a dime, that it was just earned and that you're seeing his urges he's been trying to control and how tempted he was this whole episode, the more and more, and how he was trying to get away from it. And every time someone was bringing up something Matt did, he was trying to be like, oh, let's go line dance or something like that. So I thought they did a really good job with that. And like everyone predicted, but I'm happy it's the case, is that we knew Jennifer Carpenter, who plays Deb, and she's a brilliant actress, was going to be in this season. Everyone predicted, well, how do you do that if she's dead? Well, she is the new Harry here, and I love that this is the case. I love that they didn't use Harry here because that would have felt redundant. That would have felt like, okay, we've seen this 100 times before with Dexter. And honestly, there's things when you go and rewatch Dexter that are so dated now when you watch it today. So they smartly cut a lot of the dated stuff. Like even the actor of Harry, it's no offense to him, but he even comes off dated, if that makes sense. His way he's doing the portrayal of Harry feels dated. That's what I mean by that. And that the lighting on him, it's like an angel glow. Like it seems so cheesy nowadays. So they did a good job having Jennifer Carpenter here do Deborah as his kind of voice talking to him, which is really his voice, but it's what he thinks Deborah would be saying in that moment. And you want to have Jennifer Carpenter in this show. She's such a vital part of Dexter, the show, and his character, so it's such a smart decision. And why that makes it fresh, though, and not just like her filling Harry's shoes, it's complete opposite, where Harry was telling Dexter to be accepting of who he is, to control that he's always going to be a killer and that he is a killer. But Deborah believes in him, and it's fitting to Deborah. Like, she's like, no, you don't have to be this way. Commit to the routine. And that's why she gets upset when he does fall into his urges, and she sees a better version of Dexter that Harry really didn't. And that could be, maybe Harry's right, maybe he isn't. That's kind of the story of Dexter here as we learn about his character. So it does make a fresh voice that is like anti what Dexter is doing as a serial killer, where Harry was supportive in a sense. He just had to follow a code. Now, when we talk about the wink wink moments that are the stuff we know and love from Dexter, like him bringing donuts to his job, him saying his classic line, on this one, I'm basically Switzerland. I love to hear that. And they had nice little touches of lines here where, he says to Matt, I haven't killed an animal since I was a teenager, which is the truth. Remember, in season 1 in a flashback, we saw as a teenager, he killed the neighbor's dog. Of course, being a sign of a serial killer here. But he hasn't since, and he doesn't in this episode either, where they kind of lead you that way like he's going to, but he can't. It's not him. And we meet his love interest now, which is Angela Bishop. She's the chief of police in this town, and you see Dexter still can't quit being around crime, being around the law. And it goes to, he can't quit, he's working in a fish and game shop with guns and knives around him. So as much as he was saying he was like being a different person for 10 years, he really is doing the worst things you can do for someone if you want to compare it to like addiction. You shouldn't be around guns and knives then if you're a serial killer. You shouldn't be around the police station, honestly, where you used to work. So it's something that he wasn't fully ever recovered from being a serial killer. You're putting yourself in that situation, like to just, let's say, relapse. It's like, again, like an alcoholic, just, I haven't drank in 10 years, but I still hang around bars all the time. It's a recipe for disaster here. So they did a good job of kind of showing you that he wasn't fully over those things. Just little things too. Seeing the butcher here, how he just gets that like craving when he sees all that blood. It's fascinating. And they did such a good job with that, and they didn't overdo it. And they did a good job reminding you of like Dexter Morgan here, his killings and what he does. He has that superhero arc where we know so well that he's doing it for justice. So him being around people telling him what Matt really did at the end of the day with this boat and killing these people because he was wasted, it's going to set him off. This is what causes him to kill. He wants to get rid of these bad people, and his way of doing it is killing, which is his kind of passion, and his drug. And it makes sense then why he doesn't kill this white buck, and he has this moment where he reaches his hand out because he doesn't want to kill the innocent. That's not Dexter at the end of the day. So it did a really good job with that and getting that feeling of like, oh, now you're on Dexter's side again too, because he's not shooting this white buck. He's killing this guy who's so hateable again, and this character of Matt. What they did a good job with the writing here is we see there's this mysterious figure watching him the whole episode. Turns out it's Harrison. And that's what's interesting too about the finale of Dexter as a whole, that it did actually leave some open threads. So it's not like this feels forced. It wasn't this tight bow of the finale of Dexter. There was things that are left to explore with Dexter, but also with his son. So they kind of lucked out with that they can explore that with Harrison. And even what's going on with Hannah, which will be interesting to see if they bring Yvonne Strahovski back, which would be awesome because I love her as an actress. Shout out Handmaid's Tale. But, it's interesting that what they did here to set up how Harrison feels like Dexter has ditched him, which is true. But Deb's like, no, you hurt everyone you love. Don't go near him. And then he sides, you know what? By the end of this episode, he's going the Harry way. When the Harry way is killing by the code and addressing what's there and dealing with it head on. And it seems like Dexter's assuming, obviously, that Harrison's got his blood. He's the only true blood son of Dexter, and that he would have this serial killer tendency. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to do what Harry did for me. Protect me. Show me the way. So it's different than what Deb would want, and he knows that in his head, but he's going with what Harry's saying. But what I'm saying about the writing and setting that up really well, where it tied with the main story well, is having that conversation when he eventually kills Matt. That, Matt saying he didn't have a good childhood and parents that treat him horribly, basically didn't have the guidance, and Dexter relating to that, but saying Harry was his guide. So it kind of puts in his mind, too, at that point, again, maybe I should go and be a father figure to my son Harrison so he doesn't feel betrayed and go down a darker hole than he possibly could without Dexter's guidance. But my favorite thing this premiere did more than anything was you're sitting there wondering, this is a full Dexter episode where they're going to get with none of Dexter's narration. That's such a prime integral part of this show. It's based off the book, so it kind of runs like a book where you're hearing his thoughts, which makes it so exciting. And I love they made it seem like we weren't, and then they gave you that reward, and it's when he breaks and becomes the Dexter we know and love, when he's like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. I loved it. He's bringing up the code again. That was such an awesome payoff and reveal that, okay, we're back, we're really here now in Dexter's shoes. He's doing his narration, and we see Michael C. Hall hasn't lost a step as Dexter. He absolutely crushes, which is expected, but he was so good, especially when he broke here. And his scene, and like I said, I wish I had wrote down the actor's name, because he deserves to hear his name, but the actor of Matt, really kills it here. Like, people would say, well, maybe he's overacting in this scene, but he's not. Like, that's what you're doing when you're on your death table here with Dexter, and to keep up with Michael C. Hall as a tribute to him, and that's a props to the casting in this episode, and that also goes to the actor of Harrison here, his son, because Harrison, if you're bringing in a teen character, you always worry, and you got to make sure so people don't get annoyed by that character, they get frustrating. That's a really good actor, and Harrison's already shown the actor that he's really good here too, so I'm really happy and relieved that they're casting good actors around Michael C. Hall. And like I said, you're still getting the Dexter love, but they're giving it freshness. Like, just a little thing here where, we see, like he always did, he's cutting the cheek and keeping that blood as a trophy, but he's like, you know what? I may be a monster, but I'm an evolved monster. So he's not doing that anymore. So again, giving us what we know, but making a fresh take on it and evolving the character. Like he's saying he's an evolved monster. So hopefully they keep down that route. And it's going to be interesting to happens now with him and Deb, because Deb's like, why are you doing this? You're not listening to me. He's like, I'm not listening to you at all anymore. And so this is going to be a conflict there. Again, I'm hoping they don't bring Harry back as a Flash, because again, I feel like it will feel too redundant and dated. Again, no diss to the actor, but his portrayal of the character and the way they showed him was very dated if you rewatch it. So I'd rather them stick to Deborah here, and who wouldn't want more of Jennifer Carpenter? It's a reason to keep her on the show. And it leaves interest here of like, what is Harrison going to be like? Is Dexter making the wrong call? Maybe Harrison's completely normal, so is this a bad idea to bring Harrison close to him like Deborah's saying? We're going to have to see. They set up little seeds for the season, like him killing Matt and Matt bringing up his father, who's this powerful man, rich man in the town. So that's going to be something that's going to follow Dexter, and him maybe trying to figure out who killed his son, obviously. And they set up stuff with Angela, that Angela's a mom. So his love interest, Angela, having a daughter, is going to also be important for Dexter, and that's going to add more complications to that relationship. And you see Dexter doing those, things that's awful that happens within his life from doing all these killings, is that now here we go. He's lying again, where she's calling him, like, where are you? We're at this Christmas gathering, and he's got to make up where he is. This is classic Dexter, and this is his downfall, and he just loses the normal life as he does these killings and things that he loves. So that's the tough thing, and clearly where Deborah's right. And you see with Dexter, he even mentions to Matt that he's a little rusty here with the killing and his setup, but they did leave a little cliffhanger here too at the end of the episode, where there's a blood trail to his killing shack. So I don't know if I'm looking too much into that, but I think that is a case where because of his rust, he's already leaving a blood trail of what he's done. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there, and that, he hasn't done this for about 10 years. So we'll see if he can even do this well anymore. But, I thought this was a great premiere. It's a lot of setup, but they took their time in a slow pace that really worked, and that you got the payoffs for it, and that it was realistic, and that, again, the main thing was it didn't feel like, do we need to be here, or do we need to do this, revival of Dexter? I felt like, no, we do need to be here. This is justified, and this is really good. And you're seeing, like, what happens is you bring back the showrunner that worked, and you see the magic that happens. It's pretty simple at the end of the day with that, right? Like, oh, what's the writer that had the best season of Dexter? Let's bring him back. It's probably the only reason Michael C. Hall did it, and it works between the two of them. They work together. You have Jennifer Carpenter, can't go wrong, and they show they're ready to do a fresh take on it. So I'm excited for this to come. I'm giving this one a 9.1. Let me know down below what you thought of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I will be reviewing every episode of Dexter, so make sure to subscribe. I'm excited to talk to you guys about this. Leave your theories down below, where you think this might go, what you thought of the episode. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. And if you really love what I do here, please become a member. You can join button right there down below. You'll get exclusive stuff for signing up, and it will help support me to do this full time one day. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok as well. You can get clips from my interviews and reviews. And I'll see you next time.